Hey everyone, George here, the Disney Italiano, coming to you with another video here on Citrico Central. This video is actually compliments to a viewer of mine, Brian, who submitted a question during one of my lives. And the question was very complex, and I couldn't really think of how to answer it like right at the top of my head. So I just decided to, hey, do a whole video on it. So want to give kudos and thank you to Brian for submitting in the question, which allowed this video to be possible. But so essentially, what Brian's question was, what is my top 10 favorite films of the Walt Disney Company abroad? So that's including Walt Disney Animation, Pixar, Disney Live Action, Lucasfilm, and Marvel. So I thought that was a very challenging question, to say the least. But I'm up for the challenge. I go for it. In the words of Avatar, "Siva Ko, rise to the challenge." So let's get into it, shall we? So my number 10, starting off, would be Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, I know over the years a lot of people have been giving this movie crap, but I actually enjoy it. I feel, for me, out of the three prequels, I know a lot of people would, justify, Revenge of the Sith, which I enjoy that movie. Don't get me wrong. It's basically Anakin becoming Darth Vader. But I feel like with The Phantom Menace is we get the start of the genesis of Anakin Skywalker, who he was growing up as a child, how he got to where he was, and starting off with like the pain of, leaving his home and leaving his mother behind, that he was a slave, so to speak, to, to the Hutts. And he was he was being owned, and how he was into pod racing, and how he wanted to escape the planet and see the galaxy and everything. And so it kicked off everything of who Anakin was and the direction he was going. Now, and again, I know it's a lot of like speaking, there's a lot of dialogue in the movie, but I don't know, I enjoy the movie for what it was. And it had a kick-ass soundtrack. Just in general, I mean, John Williams, I mean, come on, like, you can't, especially the epic end battle between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul. I mean, epic, absolutely love it. Coming at number 9 would be the Jungle Book live action. Now, for the longest time, this was my top favorite Disney live action remake. Nothing actually toppled it until there have been actually a movie that did more recently, which is on this list, but a little bit further down. So for me, what Jon Favreau did with the Jungle Book is he did it in a retelling way where you understood the story, but it gave it through the Kipling vibe, So the story, the visual effects of how it was a little bit played to the darker tone, but again, it was still a fun movie. They still included a lot of the music from the animated film, with the Bare Necessities and A Friend, I Want to Be Like You. So and the cast was phenomenal. Bill Murray playing Baloo, Christopher Walken as King Louie, Scarlett Johansson as Ka. I think Idris Elba played Shere Khan, I believe so. I think it was Idris Elba. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe that's who it was. So yeah, the Jungle Book live action was like my top dog of live action remakes for a while. So it still made the list with number 9. Number Number 8 is the animated Pinocchio. Um, I absolutely love the movie. I know it's kind of dark in a way, for an animated film if you look at a lot of the context, behind it. But um, When You Wish Upon a Star literally became the company's anthem. Um, just it's basically the slogan of the movie, and I love it when they released it. I think for its 70th anniversary. I mean, now it's at its I think it's 90th, but it's the movie that taught the world to wish upon a star, and like that just gives me the goosebumps just talking about it. I absolutely love it, and my all-time favorite Disney character um, is in the movie, which is Jiminy Cricket. He's always been my favorite character for a long time. Um, it's just like that, that little voice behind you. Don't we all want that little voice behind our head just to tell us what's right and wrong and guide us in the right direction? That conscience. So we all want to have that Jiminy Cricket. And I remember actually when I was 5 years old, for Halloween, my mom dressed me up as Pinocchio, and I had a little stuffed plushie of Jiminy Cricket that I hung on my belt that he was like with me. So I ended up winning the Halloween contest at our local park for being Pinocchio. So yeah, I absolutely I love the movie, regardless of how people feel about everything that's surrounding in it. It does have a dark tone, but what doesn't these days? Number 7 for me would be Marvel's Infinity War. I know that may sound like a surprise. That like, why wouldn't you say Endgame? Because Endgame had that epic finale, which it did. But I'm going with the movie as a whole. If it was just about the ending of Endgame, yeah, it would be on my list. But for me, as a whole film, I feel like the Infinity War had a much stronger tone of storyline. I just felt like there wasn't really enough in Endgame until it got to the very end. Um, so I just loved how it incorporated basically all the Avengers and really trying to find a way to defeat Thanos. And it kind of gave you that cliffhanger of how Infinity War ended, but how Endgame was going to begin. And yeah, it was just basically the startup of like defeating Thanos. So that's, I think out of all the Marvel films thus far, Infinity War has always been like my top for sure. Let's see. Number 6 is the live action uh, remake that dethroned the Jungle Book, and it was much more recently. Would be Lilo and Stitch live action. I absolutely loved the live action remake. I know there was some changes that a lot of people weren't happy about, with like who the real villain was of the family, how it ended with Nani not sticking around, for Lilo, going off pursuing, her career and everything, which spoiler alert, for all of you who didn't see it yet. Um, but all in all, it was a very strong live action, and it really tugged on your heartstrings of how a Disney film should be, whether it's animated or live action. The young actress, who I can't recall her name at the moment, who plays Lilo, she's going to be a superstar. I mean, to me, she's already a superstar. I mean, this movie has like put her on the map, and especially since at the time of this recording, yesterday was 626 Day, June 26th. They, involved everything like from having Stitch and his cousins and all the other characters in the parks to actually Disney announcing that they are in the process of making a live action Lilo and Stitch sequel, which is going to be an original story. And it's not going to be based off of Stitch Has a Glitch. So I think it's going to be risky. You have to, if you're going to come up with, but we love original stuff. We crave it. And I'm very curious to see how creative they get with it. And I think if they keep the same cast, they'll knock it out of the ballpark for sure, which I do like how the fact that they are considering a sequel, because it could give us the unanswered questions as to why the movie was the way it was with the subtle changes. So I think that would be very important. Number 5, we are halfway there, folks. Number 5 would be 2009's Disney Pixar's Up. Um, Up is actually in my top 5 Pixar films of all time. It just the beginning, the beginning, like montage of what the movie is setting itself up. I mean, it already like makes you a complete, excuse me, nervous, like a wreck, of emotions, of how these two young kids, Carl and Ellie, became friends, essentially, married each other, had a long life together. Carl losing Ellie and basically becoming this bitter, grumpy old man, until, a young boy, basically shows him the youthfulness again of how he used to be and how he and Ellie was together. So, I mean, and it's just an action packed adventure, with him wanting to keep his promise to Ellie by taking a trip to Paradise Falls, by, you know, hundreds of balloons that would lift his house up, that would travel him there. And yeah, it had a lot of heart, a lot of laughs, again, a lot of action packed adventure. So number 5 for me would definitely be Up. Number 4, going to Disney animation, would be the 1994 The Lion King. 1994's The Lion King. This movie, I mean, again, another movie that like really like tugs on your heartstrings, that literally it's an animal version of Hamlet. And basically a young cub was destined to become king. Tragically, his father was killed by his uncle and he was framed for murder. And again, there's I know it seems kind of dark, but it's like you get that, the darkness, you get the heart, you get the sadness, you get the laughter, you get the music by Elton John and Tim Rice, phenomenal work with the soundtrack. And again, The Lion King will just, go down in classic animation cinema, along with all the other greats. Number 3 would be Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. And for me, this is the top notch, for me, the creme de la creme of all Star Wars films. A New Hope was great. It set the stage for, what made Empire Strikes Back, even greater. The fact that, Luke got to battle Vader, one-on-one for the first time, and then unveiling the real true, secret of who Vader is, that, he's Luke's father. Spoiler alert, by the way, folks, for all of you who didn't know that. So for me, yeah, like without a doubt, Empire Strikes Back is still the best of the best. I don't think there will ever be a Star Wars movie or anything of that nature that can beat Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, for me anyways. All right, coming up with number 2, and it's going back to Pixar, and it would be Pixar's Coco. For me, this is my number 1 Pixar film of all time. I just love the lush, colorful animation, the storyline, the music. Again, at the end, when Miguel is singing with his mama Coco, Remember Me, a song that was written by her late father, who was murdered, but for his great work and everything. So again, it just goes back to of how great storytelling can be done, even with animation. You could have the dark times, you could have the light times, music, laughter, sadness. It could all tug on your heartstrings, and you could just wrap it all up in one big bow, and you have one great story. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to do Coco 2. I mean, I really personally don't think that they needed a sequel. I could see why Disney, wants to kind of touch upon it now with the new attraction coming out to DCA. They want to keep, the franchise alive, no pun intended, and maybe incorporate some of the sequel into the ride itself. But as I said, I would have just been fine just with the movie as its own, but I'm for sure it'll do very well. And it'll bring bucos to the box office for sure. And before we get to number one, I want to have some honorable mentions that uh, couldn't really make the list. I mean, technically they could have, but this was a challenge to say the least of how difficult it was just to like knock everything down into just 10. But some honorable mentions was Star Wars, was Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I absolutely love how it was a great story. It didn't really have to focus on like just the Jedi, but like basically the interwovens of like in between um the original Star Wars story and like how it came to be with the plans of with the Death Star and everything. And again, it didn't have to just be centered around the Jedi, which I absolutely love that. And as I said, the story was great, the characters were great. It was a very strong film to say the least. So definitely I had to add Rogue One in as an honorable mention. Another one is kind of ties into Marvel, but it wasn't. It was released by Sony, so I couldn't really put it in there. But I'm just going to give it as an honorable mention, just because it's a movie that literally I went to go see in theaters, and people were standing on the seats applauding this movie while it was still playing, and it was Spider-Man's No Way Home. The fact of utilizing the Marvel's multiverse and literally putting all three Spider-Men together on one screen was history in the making. You will never get another reaction. Even if they put all three of them, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland together again, it would be great. But you will never get that first reaction of having the three of them work together in the movie. To me was phenomenal, because as I said, it literally takes you all the way back to your childhood growing up from seeing the first Spider-Man on the big screen with Tobey Maguire. Then it transitioned to Andrew Garfield and then Tom Holland. And you're all thinking of like, okay, they're just different segments of Spider-Man. But what Marvel did was so genius, was to combine their universes together to battle these villains from the past, so to speak, including Doc Ock and the Green Goblin, for which Alfred Molina reprised his role as Doc Ock, and William Dafoe reprised his role as the Green Goblin. So phenomenal. As I said, it's a Sony movie, but still, since it falls under the canon of Marvel, I just had to throw that in as an honorable mention. My last honorable mention before we get to number one would be James Cameron's Avatar. Now, the reason why I didn't say Avatar 2, The Way of Water, which I think honestly, me personally, I prefer a little bit more over number one. But here's why I chose the first Avatar. As time goes on, James Cameron is just going to keep outdoing himself. So by the time Avatar Fire and Ash is released, it's probably going to knock the Way of Water out of the water, no pun intended. So I'm picking the first Avatar because essentially you needed that first Avatar film. So James Cameron could have outdone himself with that one by making The Way of Water and then Fire and Ash and then the sequels after that, so on and so forth, because it literally set the stage for this new groundbreaking tech that he used, that it wasn't necessarily CGI, but it wasn't necessarily like live, right? Like it was live. It was, a lot of the scenes were shot live with the actors, but it wasn't like you could actually just see the actors or you just see the CGI. It was like a blend, excuse me, of how he utilizes technology, and the fact that he had a specialty camera made, and while they're in the sound stages in the studio and everything, that he's looking through this camera and he's literally seeing the world of Pandora, a world that he created from scratch, and watch it in real time as it's being filmed. I mean, like, that is just like phenomenal. That is like so amazing for its time, because the first Avatar came out in 2009. You know, that's just when like technology was just like coming up on its own as like a brand new way of how we do things. So the fact that James Cameron was one of those spearhead pioneers on that. Absolutely genius. And as I said, I know it's a 20th century, Fox film, but being that Disney bought Fox with 20th century, so again, another reputable, honorable mention. Now, we're going to get to number one. For all of you who know me and have been watching my videos on Citrico Central, as also on Orange Grove 55, I think you would all pretty much know what my number one movie is. But in case you haven't seen like a lot of our shows and you're brand new to it, my number one movie of all time is the brilliantly done 1991's Disney animated classic, Beauty and the Beast. To me, I don't think there will ever be a Disney animated film that will ever top Beauty and the Beast. I challenge Disney to do it. If they could do it, I will eat that crow. But I don't know, just something about Beauty and the Beast, the way it was done with the music of Alan Menken and the late great Howard Ashman, of how, they came from Broadway. So essentially they helped create the storyline and the character arc of Beauty and the Beast. And it's basically an animated Broadway show on screen. And that's what actually led to Disney to consider going into Broadway. And Beauty and the Beast was their first Broadway show because of it. They were also Alan Menken got to add in Human Again back into the re-release. I believe it was in 2001 for its 10th anniversary. They got the original cast to come back, which was part of the Broadway show. They added it in the Broadway show because it got cut from the animated, and then it made full circle and was re-released in the movie when the movie was re-released in theaters. Again, beautiful music, beautiful character, beautiful animation. Again, the Little Mermaid basically started the Disney Renaissance era in Disney animation. That was the start of the comeback. But for me, Beauty and the Beast was the rubber stamp, signed, sealed, and delivered all the way, for sure. So that is my top 10 films, on top with a few honorable mentions of the films that I think are the best throughout the whole Walt Disney Company. I want to thank Brian once again for sending over the question during the live, which allowed me to be able to do this video. So thank you so much, Brian. I greatly appreciate it. And if anybody has any other questions or ideas that you would want me to make into content for future videos or lives or what have you, please comment down below. Shoot me your idea. I'll definitely give it a look and a strong consideration. And you just never know. It may become the next show on Citrico Central. But as I always say, in Disney Italiano fashion, first, also, yes, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I got a lot of content coming out for you. So it's going to be great. So please do so. I greatly appreciate it. Now, as I always say in Disney Italiano fashion, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Italiano out.